Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Morelia Python Radio, and in this episode we are talking with Nick Mutton. At first we couldn't get things going, some technical difficulties on Nick's end, but we ended up making it work. So here you go, 2 hours of carpet python talk with the carpet python master himself, Nick Mutton.
Swear to God.
Oh,
there he is.
there he is.
Never mind.
Sorry for everybody that left. Yeah, no worries.
So,
Lucas said he was Lucas is supposed to train you on these things.
yeah,
Nick,
I blame Lucas for all of
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this one was your fault, though. No.
No,
we told everybody.
It's usually my fault, but this it's usually. I'm so old. I'm like not very technically. I'm very technically challenged. So I've been back here for 10 minutes screwing around with this camera and green screen, trying to get things lined up. Even that's befuddled me in my old age.
Well, you know.
I feel your pain, man. I feel your pain.
Even that's mostly just to camouflage how messy my office is, so nobody can see what's behind the mess behind the green curtain.
Oh, that's how you do that. Okay.
That's a disaster. Yeah. His desk is a mess.
Okay. All right.
Well, I guess we're doing this
So how you
now.
been, man?
Yeah.
Eric, ask questions.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Dude,
before we get into carpet python talk, because we've got a lot of carpet python stuff to talk about, I thought we would talk about, like, what was your recent herp trip? You went to Thailand, right?
Yeah.
And Vietnam. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And Vietnam. So how was it?
Our old friend Chris Salemi and the GOAT, Ryan Young. So,
Oh, nice.
Nice.
It was a lot of fun, but it ended up being more of a sort of a cultural sort of experience than a herping trip. I mean,
okay.
you've been on big international herping trips before, and sometimes it goes great. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes all the best laid plans, you can't control the weather months in advance. And it should have been 1 month after the end of the rainy season, and it didn't get the memo. It rained most of the days we were there.
Oh.
It was unusually cold and rainy. So it really kind of put the schnitzel on a lot of herping.
Mm.
We found a few things here and there. I did manage to road cruise 3 elephants, so that was unexpected. So
Like elephant.
That's
like
pretty cool,
elephant.
though.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, like you're out 4 hours in the back of standing up in the back of a pickup truck, holding onto a roll bar, driving 1,000,000 miles an hour through the Khao Sok National Park in Thailand, and only one road-killed cobra, and only snake we saw all night, but did cruise 3 elephants that were just on the road, on the side of the road. So,
Jesus.
yeah,
Especially for you being like a woolly mammoth type guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're all
Yeah, I
into
was a little surprised. Did not expect to see that at
That
all.
is cool.
Free-ranging elephants. So, and Chris just
nice.
lost it. He's standing next to me in the back of his truck, and I just say like, we overshot the first elephant. And then Chris looks at me and goes, "Wait, that was real?" Like, I thought it was a fake elephant. Like, he was just dumbfounded as a real elephant just on the road. Like, and then we saw a few other ones that same night. So it was fun. Cool people.
Yeah, Chris was telling me about the plane, like the switching over from spot to spot. I was like, wow, man. Woo.
Yeah, the older I get, the less I'm into the traveling aspect of getting to the other side of the planet. It's just to get to. We went to Cat Ba Island off the northern coast of Vietnam, and spent a lot of time looking. There's an endemic cave gecko that only lives on Cat Ba Island, and we didn't find any, but it wasn't for any lack of searching.
Mm.
But just to get there, I mean, you're 3 hours out of Bangkok to Hanoi, and then you're like 3 hours in a bus, and then you're like changing buses, and then you're in a ferry, and then you're in a car, and then you're on another bus. It's a lot of work to get there.
Just to find the gecko, just to look for the gecko.
Yeah, and then not find it. Like,
To not find it. Yeah.
It's skunked. It was fun.
Well, that's
Unlike
that
Australia,
sometimes is the fun of herping. Oh,
Is it? I don't.
I think that the failures are the only thing that give the successes meaning. If every time you went, you just found everything, it wouldn't be that much fun.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's like the guys who spend their whole life searching for like sunken Spanish treasure ships in the Caribbean or something, and 30 years of searching, and they finally, the elation when they finally find something. It's only because they spent all this time, searching unsuccessfully. Either of you guys ever play golf?
A couple times, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Except if you're not good at it when you're learning, I'm no good at it at all.
I suck at it. Yeah.
No, me neither.
You can whiff it like 10 times in a row, and you get up. But the first time you actually get some wood on it and knock the crap out of it, you feel like you're on cloud 9. And so it's a bit like that. I think it only feels that good when you really drive the crap out of that ball because you just made 10 divots before that.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So you need the
100%.
Southeast Asia is fun for anybody that's never been. It's so inexpensive. It's like, other than getting there, everything's almost free. It's so cheap. We were in Hanoi, and we stayed one night in Hanoi just by the airport in a hotel. And we're taking off for the island the next morning, and there's like a little tiny restaurant where they're literally washing dishes on the street, basically by hand. We got a big bowl of noodles with beef and all the options, all the bells and whistles and everything. It's huge. It's amazing. And you're eating this. And I did the math in my head, and I realized like this just cost 42 cents.
Jesus.
Like, this whole bowl of noodles. Wow. It's like the most expensive thing they had on the menu is 42 cents. Yeah, this is great. Like, so I gained 11 pounds in 13 days.
The opposite of Australia, where you're eating out of gas station meat pies and stuff. Yeah.
Hey, do not talk about the gas station meat pie.
I do not knock the gas station meat pie. I only speak truth.
Sometimes when you get like the places that make their own sausage rolls, the big fatty sausage in the middle, it's so good in Australia. Yeah. I love it.
Along with the ice break coffee, you're golden.
Yeah, right? Golden. All the time, every day. My last trip to Australia, I gained 17 pounds in 2 weeks.
Jesus.
And you know what? Like after 2 weeks, like 9 pounds of it was still there. It was legit weight. Like I have this weird like obsession with that kind of stuff when I'm at home, and then I go on vacation. I just go completely insane. Like, I don't just eat whatever I want. Like, I almost go out of my way to destroy all my progress.
That's what you do with vacations. It's fine.
I'm gonna undo 5 years of
several months worth of work is destroyed in 5 minutes. Yeah.
It's all the street food and stuff. We're in Vietnam, and there's these. It's always like a 1,000,000-year-old lady with a little thing of boiling oil, and they're like deep frying, like It's almost like they took like a banana and smushed it and then dipped it in like a pancake batter and then deep fried it. So it's like this crispy banana donut thing. It's like 6,000 degrees.
Okay.
And it's amazing because it is because it's cooked in like a dirty pot of oil in a street. Like, so it's good. And it was the greatest thing. And it was better than eating that? Eating like 5 of them. Like, just keep eating more of them. Just keep going.
Yeah. I guess if they're 46 cents.
Yeah, 25 cents will buy you 12. It's like, oh, cool. Yeah.
And Ryan and Chris, I love Ryan and Chris to death, but let's face it, these guys are not paragons of fitness. And even they were like, why are you eating so much? What are you doing? They're like,
I think Chris did say that to me. He's like, Nick is eating everything.
Everything, yeah.
Let it be. He's on vacation.
I'm paying for it still.
Doesn't count over there. It's fine.
You'd think I'd learn after this long, but nope.
Yeah.
Nah. Yeah. That's it. So, all right. Let's start with it. I thought this was a good question. This came in from Miles Pickett, right? And he says, knowing your background in auto body and fabrication, how much and what of his housing enclosure knowledge has he done DIY? And what kind of mechanicals is he running? What are some of the biggest mistakes he made early on in his career? And what were the solutions?
Well, that's a whole show. Talk about the that'd be a whole show unto itself.
Well, didn't Nick make the walk-in incubator out of like a closet or something like that in his house? Or
no, that's a freestanding room in my laundry. I have an oversized laundry room, so I just kind of cordoned off and made a little walk-in incubator. That's been a triumphant success, actually.
Yeah, so I mean, it's DIY.
I've always been I mean, not to go too long, wax poetically too long about my own life and upbringing and where I came from, but I was the poor kid. Like, seriously, like, single mom working 2 jobs, latchkey kid, government cheese, poor, food stamps,
Right.
extremely poor. And I kind of had a lot of friends who are not poor. And so you kind of want what all your friends have, but your friends' parents just buy them a new car, but you got to go get a job washing dishes to buy some 30-year-old piece of shit, this kind of stuff. So when you're really poor, you have to just learn to do stuff and fix stuff because you can't afford stuff that isn't broken. And so necessity is the mother of invention, so they say.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned a lot of that kind of stuff, mechanical abilities. So yeah, early on, and even now, no one can see it by design, hence the green screen behind me. But my office is going to be, I need another baby room. So I'll have like 3 baby rooms in 3 different buildings, technically, or 3 rooms. One for yearlings and grow-outs, one for babies, and one for the adults. And they're all technically in different buildings. That's what I'm building behind me. But I'm building it all myself. Partly because the wait time anymore, it's like the craziest thing. Like, I could probably afford to just buy some, but you can't. I don't want to wait a year to get anything.
You don't want to have to do all that lead time that they have for a rack.
Yeah, I've had a couple of guys that I've had custom build me stuff to spec, and it's like I had a bit of a falling out with one of those guys, and one of them kind of quit building cages, and so now I'm like, I got to do this myself again. But it's because if you build it yourself, you get exactly the height, the width, exactly what you want that fits exactly to your specs. You're not trying to fit or adapt something someone else made to your purposes. So I'll have this room should house about 350.
Only 350 babies? I mean,
That's my plan is just for the current year. So the 2023 babies will go in here, and as long as they don't hatch more than 350 of them or so, I shouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, why'd you throw that out in the universe? It's like, if only I can only have 350. It's like you're gonna have like 8 sets of twins that push it just over that line.
In all fairness, it's my job. Like, I don't. My hobby got so big I didn't have time to go to work anymore, so I just started doing this. But, I try to not have more than about 300-ish babies because the workload, if you don't have employees, just as a single person, gets to be a lot.
Yeah.
The reason for the baby room isn't. I just like in my old age, I think some of these babies need a little bit more space than I've been able to give them. So by having a secondary room, I'm able to basically double the hatchling tub size. So I'm not going to have more snakes. I'm not going to produce more snakes. I'm just going each snake is going to have more space and not be quite so packed.
Nice
in there and stuff. So
are you going for like a 6-quart size tub, or is that?
This is going to make me sound really. This is making me sound really stupid, but I have no idea what a 6-quart tub is. Like there's certain things in the hobby that everybody knows. That I don't know. They talk about 6-quart or 12-quart. Like I have no idea what does that even mean. What are the dimensions of the tub that would be a 6-quart tub? I don't know. It's like people tell me what a.
I think it's like
they start talking about rats and they tell me like it's like a 150-gram rat or a 250-gram rat. Like, I have never weighed a rat in my life. I have no idea what that means. Even my mouse guy doesn't even. It's like, my fuzzies are this many grams. Like, I don't know what that means. Like, I just look at the snake and look at the rodent, and I know if that snake will fit in that rodent, and the rodent will fit in that snake. I don't. So I'm like old school. I'm like length, width, height. The tub dimensions, quart size. Don't know.
Okay. I think they're like, what would you say, Owen? 13 inches long, 4 inches wide, 4 inches
tall. I'm trying
tall,
to get an exact thing for it.
It's like the size of a shoebox.
Yeah. I'm going with the 350 I'm building will be like iris shoe boxes. So they're about 14 inches, 15 inches.
Yeah.
About 5.5 wide, about 4 high. And I had
because you used to use the small ones that I did, right? I got it from you. It was like those.
Yeah, but I have 500 of those tubs, which is a lot. And they're great for like baby carpets, like right when they hatch. But if they're around for any amount of time, they grow that quickly. I'll still keep about 100 of them on hand for Antaresia and really small stuff.
I love them for corn snakes, rhino rat snakes, and mad hogs.
I gave them all to Owen.
Oh yeah,
use the iris boxes for the baby carpets now. I've actually had like a few hundred custom 3D printed perch assemblies with water bowl holders for them all. So they'll all have it'll be a
Nice.
a bit better. They can be in there a bit longer without outgrowing it in 3 months or whatever. So yeah, and then in the grow out room, it'll be more V18s, V15s, V18s, and on up. I think the V18 is like a great tub for holdbacks and stuff. It's so I've got So currently I have racks all over the place that are just like I've picked up here and there, like there's nowhere to put them until I get all this big changeover done after I'm done cycling this year. So
never turn down a rack. Just I'll bring it home. I'll find a spot for it later. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, if I find a good deal, it's like, geez, it's like stuff's not cheap.
No. So how's your season going so far?
I don't know. Like I'm like I have the same process every year, and it works for me. So I'm reluctant to change it, and that is, I set out what my goals, what I want to try to do. I pair everything. Nothing breeds. I get immediately like super discouraged and super pessimistic, and I just start talking myself down, convince myself the end of the world is happening and nothing's going to lay eggs and it's going to be a complete disaster. And then usually a lot of it goes and it's not too bad. But I'm right at that point where nothing's going to go and it's all a disaster. But I've been doing this a long time. So.
Is this where I got my method? Because that sounds exactly what I do in mine. Like I got yelled at for walking around, going like nothing's going to breed last year, and then when all the eggs showed up, I got yelled at. Yeah,
I've got a lot of I think a lot of small clutches coming. A lot of female carpets are like getting they get kind of firm before they ovulate, and you're like, yeah, they're going to ovulate, but they're not that big. It's like you're not going to lay a lot of eggs, but I think there's going to be a fair number of smaller clutches. There's a few things I refuse to get my hopes up for that are just like some of these long-suffering projects you've been trying for 10 years to no avail, that I got a little more reason for optimism on a few of these things this year probably. So
yeah, I refuse to get excited. It's like, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I've been trying to produce albino olive pythons for 9 breeding seasons. This is the 9th consecutive year of pairing them. And every year the same thing happens. The male albino breeds the females, build a few follicles. The male breeds them one time, loses interest, they reabsorb, and then I wash, rinse, repeat next year. It's ridiculous. But this year, I'm getting more breeding activity, including with females that have huge follicles and a little bit. So it's like, oh, is this the year finally after a decade? Is number 10 the year? But we'll see. I'm not going to get my hopes up.
Didn't it take you 10 years to produce? Didn't it take you 10 years to just produce olive pythons in the past, like just regular olive pythons? Didn't you work on that for a long time?
Yeah, that's been well, that was like trying to breed them with one pair, and then I got a second male, let them fight one time, and then I got eggs every year.
Yep.
Just like, that was it.
Yep. That's
it's like
100%. That's what happened over here. It's like once you piss off the male with another one, he knows the score, and it's good. It's like, okay.
You got to watch out though, because they'll kill each other and even eat each other.
Yeah,
it ain't like wrestling carpets, which I do routinely to keep them motivated, where it's kind of a largely ritualized sort of a thing. It's like the olives, it's like it goes quickly from like shoving to bite, constrict, and kill.
Yep.
And or eat. Like it's fast. Like you got to stand there the whole time. And as soon as they start getting worked up, you separate them before otherwise it can go bad.
No thanks.
It's very effective.
We got a question from the chat. It says, at what millimeter follicle size do carpet pythons ovulate at? I want to say it's like 25, maybe.
Never ultrasounded a carpet in my life.
Oh, that's
never measured the ultrasounded carpets that I did.
Never felt possessed to buy an ultrasound machine. Honestly, carpets are pretty easy to breed. Like it doesn't. The use of ultrasound in breeding pythons is really more about like ball python people trying to breed one male to 47 females and mass produce ball python morphs. That's where that all really got going. In carpets, I'm never trying to make a million of any one thing. And you can they're easy to palpate, and you pay attention to your snakes and you know when to put, you just know. They're just not that hard. So not to make it seem like everything I do is super easy, but it's pretty easy. So a lot of it, it's not that hard. Plus, I'm old, and the technology. Do you know how long it take me to learn how to use an ultrasound machine?
The eggs would be on the ground by the time you figured it out.
Over and do it because I wouldn't be able to figure it out. Like,
I did. I usually use it as a check to like. It's like I think they're in there. Yeah, there they are, and that's pretty much the ultrasound. Yeah.
Oh, and you're doing you're also doing like white lips and stuff. You know what I mean? So
those are here. Yes.
you're doing like harder to breed species and stuff. So
weird shit. Yeah.
I can't imagine figuring the ultrasound thing out. Like, this is how technologically backwards I am. I've been paying for Hulu for like 4 years because I can't figure out how to cancel Hulu. Like, you think I'm going to, if I can't figure out how to cancel Hulu, you think I'm going to be able to figure out how to use the ultrasound machine reliably? I doubt it. I literally have
you're giving Gen X a bad name.
It's not good, dude.
I'm currently paying for every single television streaming service that exists.
Because I can't turn them off.
Some of them, I don't know how to cancel any of them. I can't even figure that out. I try for like a few minutes, get pissed. I'm like, screw it. And then I just keep paying.
Shut up, take my money, assholes.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I got them all. Like, it's like, I don't know of any major one I just paid for. And I don't think I've ever
actually an
Paramount Plus even once. Why am I paying for this? Because I can't figure out how to cancel.
There's actually an app that will do that for you, Nick.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be able to figure the app out.
Yeah, I would think it's just
you just gotta hit install.
Lucas, get the app and help.
I'm telling you,
oh my goodness,
Lucas has become my tech support, man.
We know.
Well, he's failing you, man. What the hell?
What the hell?
Unneeded money.
Yell at him some more.
Lucas is great. He's a
yeah, I love Lucas.
Yeah, we'll keep it.
Yeah, so you say, you just kind of put them together and carpet pythons are easy, but I'm with Riley in the chat. I can't figure out Darwin's to save my life. You say they're the same. I don't know. What am I doing wrong, Nick? I to me, they just seem different.
I don't know. How many Darwins do you have?
Recipe.
How many do you have?
5.
Okay, so it's not just one lazy pair that doesn't want to do anything.
No. Nope.
Man, I've not had too much trouble with Darwins, generally speaking. The babies are a bit more challenging to get feeding than a lot of the other stuff is.
Yeah, that I've heard. Yep.
But getting them to breed and lay is usually not really a problem. Are you combating the males?
I've done that.
Like, how much are you combating it? Like, I'd say put the male you want to breed, keep them separated for like a week, put the male with the female you want to breed, then put the other male in there and let them get extremely agitated to where you start hearing that thumping as they're slamming each other into the side of the cage and it's getting violent. Then you pull the male you don't want to breed out so that the male that you want to breed thinks he won. He thinks the other one ran off and he vanquished his rival and then he claims the spoils of victory. But you gotta let him get good and worked up.
Okay.
But
yeah, I don't cyst out like as soon as they start like doing the dance. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm like, no, get them out of there. Or whatever.
Oh God!
Yeah, I don't know. I thought maybe. Well, let me ask this question: how much do you think that the weather plays a factor in what we do? You know, like that whole saying of people say that they don't drop their room temperature, but the weather outside drops, so naturally your room is going to drop a little bit. Do you think that has effects, especially on that?
It absolutely does. The reality is that everybody cycles their snakes. Everybody, even the people that don't cycle their snakes, are cycling their snakes. Even if you don't touch the thermostat, you don't make any adjustments, you don't do anything differently, everything stays the same. It gets colder in the winter. If you live in the Northern Hemisphere, it's impossible for that not to happen. May not happen much, but even a little bit, if it over a regular, the older I get, the less I'm convinced it's any particular temperature, but more that enough change has occurred that they are keyed into knowing that and a seasonal rhythm, even if it's mild. So a 5-degree drop might be enough in an animal that's used to that for 5, 6, 7 years, and just that always happens, and they get in a rhythm with what you're doing. So yeah, absolutely.
Which is why it's like some of the harder species, you got to get them into the rhythm, and it takes a couple of years for them to go with you.
Well, a mistake a lot of people make.
My thoughts were going. Go ahead.
I say a huge mistake a lot of people make trying to breed pythons, particularly oddball, hard to breed things, is that they do what they think is going to bring about a successful outcome, and they don't get any eggs. So then they think, well, that wasn't it. I'll do something different next year.
Completely different next time.
Work. And then they do something else. I'll get them super cold. I won't get them cold at all. I'll miss the crap out of them. They're just doing different things every year because they think there's a magical recipe that they just need to hit the right combination of things, of stimulus and success. And what they really need to do is leave them the hell alone. Just do the same thing for 5 years and they're going to lay eggs. It's like, they will adjust to what you are doing. But if you constantly, pythons, particularly females, they don't want a stressful environment if they're going to ovulate. They need to be in a low stress environment. If the weather, basically your artificially induced weather, keeps changing year to year and there's no seasonal rhythm and everything's different every year, they never get into that groove. Mm-hmm. So just steady as she goes. Basically give them a relatively low stress and consistent environment. And that's your road to success for most of these things. Just do the same thing over and over again.
I don't really change it. I sort of, but my thoughts were going to I'm thinking the Northern Territory area. It's more monsoon. Does that pressure drop from outside play into effect more than say with a coastal carpet or jungle carpet or something like that? But then I have no problem breeding poplin carpet. So to me, that's what sort of is I can't figure out. And I have all the different lines, so it's not like I haven't tried with different animals that are unrelated, related. I just can't get it. I don't know.
Another factor with these things that it's not, it's no fun to really speculate about, and that is just random luck. Like we're trying to breed live animals, and they have a say in whether or not they reproduce. Like it's not entirely up to us. And sometimes, people get lucky and you see people breed things that you can't believe that, this person bred this thing. You're shocked that happened. And you're shocked that it didn't happen in other cases. It's like no matter how much you know or how much you understand or how much you think you know or how much experience you have, there's a bit of a random luck sort of factor involved in all of these things.
Right. Sometimes
it might be that you know everything there is to know about carpets and you just got some snakes that are unmotivated and bad luck and it happens.
Happens.
Could be. Yeah.
I've bred a considerable number of python species at this point, and there are some things I'm just cursed. I'm cursed with ringed pythons and savu pythons. Won't even go near them. I'm just done.
Savus.
I tried 3 times. It's just not meant to be. I don't know.
I washed my hands of savus. Yeah. What? I washed my hands of savus. I'm not no more.
I have one lonely bachelor male. That's it. It's just always some weird comedy of errors. Why can't I breed these snakes? So I don't know. I bred all their relatives.
But not that.
Actually, that's the only liasis that you can actually obtain.
Well, that's how I feel with Darwin.
Fuscus, olives, Maclots. I bred friggin' Dunai even. Then Savus.
It's the last one on the damn, in the tree. Come on.
Right? Right? I'm telling you.
Son of a bitch.
Son of a God damn it.
I don't know. There are those that just, I can't breed Brazilian rainbow boas. I've tried that several times over the years, too. I'm just never going to try that again. I'm done. They're cool, but that's for somebody else to do, not me.
I have to try mine in a couple of years and figure out my ring python situation.
You have them.
I have so many things now. I don't even remember.
Ring pythons are
scare the crap out of me.
What?
Ring pythons scare the crap out of me.
They scare me, but they are the undisputed world's heavyweight champions of dropping dead for no reason. Oh look, you're dead for no reason. You ate on Tuesday and now you're dead. It's Wednesday. Imagine that. Nothing. Oh look, and it's not just my experience. They do it to everybody. It's
everyone. Yep.
I don't know why. I don't know what it is about them. Something. It's got to be husbandry related. There's something we're doing or not doing that is
affecting them. Yeah,
that is affecting them. But I don't know what it is. But I've sworn them off now. I'm I'm not dealing with these things.
My one female came to me because her original owner got fed up that she's killed and eaten 2 mates. And ring pythons aren't cheap. You can't. She killed and ate one, and he gave her another chance. That's.
So I've got a very lonely Prothensis female that's done that. She's killed 2 males. She ate the last one. She literally ate him.
Oh, wow.
Put him in there, and I go in there, and she has killed him and completely ate him, and then, of course, spit him up 4 days later.
Oh, God.
I'm done. You don't get any more males. This is getting hard to replace. Because they're not cheap either or easy to get.
No more for you. Forget it.
100%.
Well, she killed the 2 younger males. The only male I have left is my old-ass original one. He's 13 years old. He's this scrawny, old, ancient snake. And I'm I don't dare risk him.
Put him in there. It's over.
No. No. I'm like, I love those snakes, but they're murdery. I've never had a Prothensis die of natural causes. I have had 3 of them die.
From murder?
Murder, yeah, it's all murder.
Die, and all of them were murdered. All were murdered. I've had a female killed a male killed a male, and a female ate a male. I put 2 males together to let them kind of fight a little bit because the interregional they'll get pissy with each other too.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't for very long. I didn't even see him do anything, but then the next day, one male was dead. Like I must have squeezed him or done something. It's like murder.
Just stretched him out, killed him in the long run.
No, they always die from foul play. I'm like, not. It's one of my favorite.
There's the doctor.
Jeez, man.
Rubbing it in. That's strange.
There's Justin.
There's Justin. I've never had a big one. Yeah. Just rub salt in that wound. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not ever giving the female, the most murdery one, is never getting another chance. It's like, you've had 2 strikes. This is.
Nope.
Not going to do it again. So, I do have a couple of young females that raised me up from Justin. So.
Okay.
Hopefully
the non-murdered line. Got it.
I often say that I think that you and Owen have the best caramels in the U.S. And I thought that we would talk about caramel carpets and maybe talk about hypos as well and how the two interact and whatnot and the differences maybe between them. And then my thoughts were I'll listen to you guys talk about it. Like, where are you taking the project? I would just want to put up so people can see, in case you haven't seen one of Nick's caramels. There you go.
I was looking at that one earlier.
Yeah. That's a nice looking snake. And then I think he has this one. I don't know if this is the same one, but this one stood out to me too. And I think maybe it's a holdback of yours, Nick, but that thing is smoking.
Still loading. Hold on.
It's really nice.
There it is.
Oh, that's I actually sold that one like a dingling. That's the brother of the other one.
Well, somebody's lucky.
Yeah, somebody got that and they're happy. Yeah.
They're. I like the caramels and super caramels quite a bit. Someone posted. I posted a picture because I'm out there taking pictures of snakes people want pictures. It's like you're selling a snake that everybody wants. No matter how many pictures you have, or how recent the picture is, or how good the picture is, they would like some more pictures.
Right.
Pretty much always. Like, I literally put, on my website, I literally have the date I took the picture. It's like, and I get people, it's like 3 days later, can I get some more pictures? And I'm getting to be a curmudgeonly old man. And now I'm just like, no, the picture's like 3 days old. I'm not taking another picture. It's like, I take good pictures. Those are good pictures. Like,
somebody last year wanted video, and I'm like, you want me to put today's newspaper in with it? Like, what are we doing here? Like, because he wanted 2 videos.
As soon as somebody does the video thing, or they want some verification that it's the right animal, and I just say, look, like, if you don't trust me, like,
you came to me.
You should only give money to people you trust. And if you think I'm some sort of a scumbag is likely to rip you off, then you should not give me any of your money. You should find somebody you have more confidence in.
Right.
Buy from that person. So now with the caramels and the hypos and red coastals and all of that sort of stuff, the caramels and super caramels you have now, I mean, when caramels first became a thing, not everybody, there was a vocal, group of people who were like, that's just a red coastal. The accusation was that it was just a normal red coastal that you're trying to sell for more money. And that eventually, the proof's in the pudding. It's not that. And then when hypos become a thing, then that's just a caramel now, which was previously also a red coastal.
Right.
And that proves that that's not what that is either and stuff. The thing with caramels, and I guess you could say red coastals as well, is you've had 40 years to refine red coastals. 40 years. 4 decades.
Yeah.
To refine red coastals. It is not surprising, therefore, that you have some pretty nice looking red coastals. I would be profoundly disappointed in the hobby if you didn't with 40 years to play with something.
Mm-hmm.
And I produced my first super caramels 12 years ago. So I've just been breeding supers to supers and keeping the best supers from super to super pairings who had super caramel grandparents. Like you do move the ball forward. Morphs are, can still be selectively bred. And it's not really that you've made the caramel gene better. It's that the caramel gene or any mutation basically does the same thing in every animal that has that mutation. It's just doing its thing. It's all the other genes that animal has that code through various aspects of pigment synthesis and pigment distribution. Those other genes still get a say in the ultimate phenotype. Mm-hmm. And so really, when you selectively breed a morph, what you're really doing is selectively breeding the other genes that animal has to kind of complement and accentuate the attributes of that morph. So It's not that my caramels are better than anybody else's. If anything, it's just that I've refined the non-caramel genes to complement the caramel gene more effectively. And it's not, I think it was Mike Cross?
Yeah, Mike is
absolutely about blew my retinas out the back of my head.
Yeah.
So it's not, I'm not the only one that's, producing animals at that level from that gene.
I guess I might be biased too. As far as and being the ones I just see you guys all the time. You're right, Mike. I did forget about Mike, but he has nice ones too. So
really nice ones.
Yeah.
I posted the picture of that super because I just was taking pictures of animals of some scrub pythons in the same area. I'm like, just what else can I take a picture of to post a picture once in a while if I can remember to do it? I took that picture of her, and somebody posted, "Oh, and it's not even a hypo. It's like we're about 10 years behind with the hypo thing. It's like, give me 10 years."
Yeah.
I'm at the point in the game now with the hypo gene that I was 12 years ago with caramel. Just produced less than a year ago my first probable super hypos that I'll need to then prove out and go through all these steps. And it's like, give me 12 years and 3 generations of refining supers and breeding supers as supers and keeping the best supers from super parents and this sort of stuff. And I expect you'll see some spectacular things.
Yeah.
That is one of the it's probably a super.
Yeah.
I have some reasons to believe that. However, anything that's, new, I guess you have to prove it out. You can't just, I think that one's a super because it's the nicest looking one in the clutch or one of a few really extreme ones in the clutch. You have to do the due diligence and prove it out. So I have a few tiger females that I'm raising up that are not caramels. They're not red. They can't make red babies. They are just normal gray tigers and exanthic tigers to breed these supers to. So I actually have 2.2 probable super hypo tigers, and I will not breed them together the first year.
Okay.
I will breed them all of them to animals that cannot make red offspring of any sort. Thus to test to see and if they are in fact supers. Once I have proven supers that are males and proven female supers, then I can just breed them together forever, and then all the babies are by default supers, and I don't have to keep proving things out. That's what I did with the caramels many years ago, and why I can just make whole clutches of supers and don't have to prove anything out. I can guarantee it. I'll have to do that with this
right
as well. I did make a 2 super caramel exanthics this year, though. That was cool. I think they're super caramels, but I couldn't, because of the parentage, I can't guarantee that that's what they are.
You have to send me pictures of those because I did a clutch of the caramel het, and I have no idea what I'm looking at. I'm just feeding them and growing them up and hoping I can figure it out later, and it's not getting any easier. So,
the ones that are exanthics should be pretty obvious right out of the gate, and the exanthic caramels aren't too hard to tell. These are the only 2 super caramel exanthics I produce, and I'm extremely confident they are. There is one tell on a super caramel on the side of the neck that almost always tells you that's what it is. And both of the ones I produced this year had very, very prominent. That marking was very prominent and very obvious. And they were from what did I breed? A caramel tiger jag het exanthic to an exanthic caramel female. So my odds were, 1 in 8.
Yeah.
I got 2. But then again, I will still breed this thing to a normal female coastal and then make sure that it is in fact a super caramel before I make any grand assumptions. But I'd be real surprised if it didn't prove out, but still got to do that to be sure.
So with your with the hypo, are you just doing hypo tigers? Are you doing normal hypos too?
It's kind of one of those things where the tiger thing is kind of taken over. I only had one pair of of hypos that weren't tigers, but their mother was a tiger. Basically, the first clutch of hypos that Paul produced, he bred the original male to a tiger that I sent over to him like 13 years ago or something crazy. And that was the parentage. And so I talked to him about a pair of hypos from that very first clutch before, a year older than anybody else got any babies. But the only ones he would sell me were the ones that weren't striped. Basically, there was a pair of hypos that weren't tigers out of the clutch.
Okay.
And that's the pair I got. Not a stripe on them at all. And all the rest of them were striped.
That's the ones I got.
Yeah. And then
No stripes.
Yeah, then I bred the two non-striped hypos that had the tiger mother. I bred them together and I have
stripes. Yeah.
Yeah. I made stripes in the second generation. Not great tigers, but as good as a lot of things people call tigers these days.
Yeah.
From non-striped parents, because they have a lot of those alleles, just not quite enough to show individually. But through the magic of polygenic traits, you put them together, and a small percentage of babies will get enough of them to line up. I also have an adult female hypo tiger het exanthic.
Nice.
That's the offspring of.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's the only reason it's a tiger, when they, modest stripe on it is because that further back in the ancestry.
There's a tiger somewhere in there. Yeah.
No, I was happy. It's like a bit of a shortcut, so I can breed her straight to an exanthic tiger in another year, and hopefully make exanthic ghost tigers or ghost. I don't know what.
Yeah, it's like you're getting to that point. Yeah,
ghost tigers. I don't know. I didn't set
are you planning on
tigers, but it's kind of going that way just because they're all the ones that keep holding back seem to be striped. So
nice.
Hold on. I'm getting that. Are you planning on crossing the hypo and the caramel together?
Never.
Cool.
Never give death. I will never do that ever, 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 never, never, ever. No. I also don't own any red coastals other than Brisbanes, but that's a self-contained thing. I would never breed a Brisbane anything that wasn't a Brisbane. So that's kind of its own little thing. I think it just opens a giant problem. Caramel and hypo are definitively separate genes. That has been proven in abundance. They are not related. They are not allelic. They are not compatible. Full stop.
Okay.
And the combo, the hypo-caramel combination, is a really good-looking snake. The problem comes, if you breed a hypo to a caramel, you'll get 75% of the babies are going to be some sort of red thing. 25% are normal. Well, that's obvious. 25% of those are not either of those genes. Then you've got to figure out what the other 3 out of 4 babies is. The hypo caramels in the first generation stand out because they're the ones that glow. They're ridiculous. Caramels and hypos don't look that similar as babies usually, but both of those, and red coastals by extension, also all of those things have a range of expression in what they can look like, and those ranges all overlap. So while most of the time a red coastal and a caramel are harder to tell apart than either of them is with a hypo, is a little bit more distinctive. But at the low end of the threshold on the hypo and the high end of expression on the other, you do get overlap sometimes where it could be murky. And you got to know what you have. I think it's not, if someone buys a snake from me, I have to guarantee that it is genetically or whatever I said it was. It has to be that. And if it's not what I said it was, that's a huge problem. It's frankly, it's very difficult to fix. How do you fix that? Oh, I'm sorry, the caramel I sold you, or the hypo I sold you, is a caramel, or the caramel I sold you is a red coastal. How can you fix that 4 years later after they've cared for it and they've fed it and they've, planned this project out, and then it turns out to not be that thing? it's very difficult to fix. So I just won't take the chance. So as pretty as a hypo caramel is, and if you ask Paul, not that Paul will go on a podcast or anything, he won't even go on my podcast. Becoming even more reclusive. But if you ask him, he will tell you it eventually becomes a mess, because he was a little smarter about it in that he bred hypo to known super caramels. So automatically all the babies are caramel,
right?
And then half of them are also hypos, and there was really obvious which ones those were. But then he bred hypo caramels that he knew for sure were hypo caramels and bred them to each other and bred them to super caramels and this kind of stuff. And you just keep making a lot of really, really, really nice looking snakes that you don't know what they are. Because imagine if you bred a hypo caramel to a hypo caramel, and you run that Punnett square, and any combination of any of those genes makes a red baby. You end up with a clutch where I think only 1 out of every 16 offspring wouldn't be red. 15 out of 16 babies are red. But you can have caramels, super caramels, hypos, super hypos, hypo caramels, super hypo caramels, super caramel hypos, super caramel, super hypos. And you're supposed to tell what all those things are? Good luck. You'll never figure it out. Ever.
No.
You'll never figure it out. You'll know, like, when they get older, if has at least a copy of the hypo gene, because it'll have certain effects. But whether it's 1 or is it 2, I think there's no realistic way you're going to be able to tell apart a super hypo caramel and a super caramel hypo. No way. With the overlapping ranges of variation, it would just be too much of a mess. So I won't do any of that. And when I got the first caramels, I brought those first ones over from Paul when he was back in Germany a long time ago, probably 15 years ago now. I purged my collection of anything that could make a red baby. So I don't have coastals that can make red babies. Some years later, I stumbled onto, I had one female jag that could make kind of a very weak red baby. It was kind of like a dark brown baby. And I accidentally made a couple of red phase exanthics that were also red coastals from a very not spectacular line of red coastals, apparently. And I got rid of an adult female. An adult female exanthic. I was like, I don't want this money up the waters later at all. But
Jesus.
So I don't know. People will make their own decisions about what they want to breed. And like I said, the combination looks amazing. It looks great. Yeah. Some of the ones Paul's made that are, super hot caramel hypos, they're ludicrous looking. Imagine, look at that super caramel I produced. Now, on top of that, it's also a hypo.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But if you want to make amazing snakes that might be difficult to identify, if they're making something that's amazing is the primary goal, then yeah. But I won't do it. I have to be able to guarantee what things are.
That makes sense. I mean, I didn't think about it from that point of view, but that, of you selling it, but they are fabulous looking.
It's a whole, this problem. It extends to all sorts of aspects.
We have enough problems like that in carpets.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's always those people, and you see it in the carpets, or it doesn't matter what it is, ball pythons, whatever subset of the hobby, where I want to breed this pair of snakes. You put the pair of snakes together, and the male doesn't do anything that you see. And so you go to Plan B male, and then when the Plan B male breeds and you get eggs, you assume the Plan B male is the father, but you don't know that the original male didn't get a sneaky one in there at some point. And so this just leads to all manner of potential problems. Oh, they're het albino. It's like, but are they? Because you had a you had a different animal in there, and just because you didn't see him do anything doesn't mean he didn't do anything. You have to be able to back it up or guarantee it.
Yeah, you got to line up the boy, and then that's the only male that goes with that female, and that's it.
Yeah, it's you
win, lose, or draw.
It is killing me right now. I have 3 pairings that are going poorly, in that nobody's doing anything. I am trying to breed. I have 1.2 hypo het exanthics. The male is really borderline in size. The females are big enough. And I am trying to breed all these things. I do not want to breed hypo het exanthics together. The odds of making an exanthic super hypo, I haven't even fully quantified what does a super hypo even look like. What is that range of variation and what to look for? So trying to hit a 1 in 16 odds when one of those things is not well defined yet, I don't want to do that. So I'm just trying to breed a proven male exanthic to the 2 female hypo hets and a hypohead-exanthic male to a proven exanthic female. And nobody's doing anything. Like nothing. Nothing. Like you don't know how bad I want to just put a different male in there or something. It's like, I've got a caramel tiger jag 100% het exanthic that would probably breed a piece of rope just sitting there pacing around doing nothing.
Nothing. Yeah,
put
nothing
everyone
to
that
do.
female, and they would. I guaranteed I'd get a clutch. But would they be exanthic? Would they be, exanthic hypos or exanthic caramels? I would not be able to be 100% certain unless it was a jag. Any non-jag offspring, I would not be 100%.
There's a question mark.
What they were. And so, what would I do with those? So I got to just bite the bullet and not get the clutch, and hope it gets better next year. So, it's
I was thinking, do you think that Ben Morrill could figure that out with rare genetics Inc?
You just send sheds and start doing it, make it much easier.
That's a yes and a no in the sense that theoretically, yes, given enough time and motivation. In the short term, no, because you don't know. I mean, as far as and hopefully at the end of this month when I start posting up episodes of this podcast, I've been recording episodes of for the last few months, little by little. One of them deals with that exact topic.
Okay.
And that is the genetic sequence, the ability to genetically sequence snakes and identify mutations. But that really only works if you know the address or the zip code at the very least of where that mutation would appear. You can't there's no test, just look for this random thing. It's like you have to know where you're looking.
Right.
To know. And the ones that they've got developed tests for with ball pythons and things are because they're ones that have already been sort of identified from previous work and you know where to look. If you know where to look for an the albino gene on the corn snake genome, if you look in that same address on the ball python genome, guess what? It's basically in the same spot because there's only so many places you can break that sequence of events genetically that will yield that result. So if you know where it is in one species and you look in the same general area, you can usually find it in other species. So that's, but with things that are totally novel, like where would you look? You don't have an analogous mutation that you know the address of.
Right.
So it's not that it can't be done. It's just that it would be a lot more work. But
you have to find
one day, yeah. But it's just so much easier to plus I keep really good lineage records. Like that's kind of my thing. And if I don't, it doesn't look good if you got like a Who's Your Daddy clutch. Like if you go on my website, I have a family tree for every clutch of carpets I've produced since 2004. It's literally hundreds of clutches, hundreds. Some years there's like 35 or 40 clutches in a year. And there's this elaborate family tree for all of them. And of all of that, there's exactly one Who's Your Daddy clutch where I had to go to and it wasn't even like I did something weird.
And that annoys him to this day.
It's hard to put in there. I had to make a line like in red so you could denote that it's possible this might be the father, but probably not, but it could be. And it was like two different male zebras. It wasn't like I put a Darwin in there. It was like just two different animals, slightly different ancestry. So I don't like doing that. I mean, sometimes it's better than getting nothing, but I really try to avoid that. I'll usually just opt for just roll the dice. I've got one of those clutches now, or maybe I'll get a clutch. I've got the best 75% ivory zebra pair I've ever produced. They are white and they are zebras and they look exactly like what imagine what you think the best ivory zebra you could ever imagine would look like. That's what this pair looks like. And I haven't seen this male do shit. Nothing. In 2 years. I didn't see him do anything last year, and the female wasn't quite ready. Well, she's ready this year, and it's the only female he's been with, and I haven't seen him do anything. They're always together, never breeding. And I've got a full-blood ivory male just sitting here doing nothing, not pacing around, not getting any females this year, and I'm like, ugh. If I put him in there, I know she'd go, but she's seems to be building, and I've got to roll the dice and hope for it because I got to know who the dad is.
Well, it's just one of those things where it's like you think but then do you talk yourself into putting the same male up next year? As now it's 2 years.
Yeah, that might be difficult if he's, thwarted me a couple times.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, that ivory project goes back to 1994, so getting close to, 29 years, getting close to 30 years of dicking with that. And even the ivory zebra thing, that's like 11 or 12 years ago. Made the first ivory zebras at 50%. So now to only just now have like ivory zebras that are actually white to put together to make an ivory super zebra, which would probably be a train wreck, but I almost have to try it. I'm just like, I gotta see what that looks like, I guess. So
yeah, I was going to ask that about the. Why is it echoing now, Owen?
I don't know.
Yeah, is it echoing now? No,
it's on Nick's end.
My end.
Yeah.
Well, then you're screwed. I'm not gonna be able to figure it out.
Yeah, no. It's just,
I can't hear anything. It sounds fine on my end.
it comes and it goes.
Yes, that's okay. Now it's not there. Okay.
Keep trying to look up for this, a tremendous number of people in the chat, and I can't keep up with it.
We just ignore them until something fun happens over there.
There's like whole side discussions going on too.
Yeah. We didn't want to say that was the issue, but
I'm a very good monotasker, but if you divide my attention, it just all falls apart.
We're keeping an eye on it. So yeah, we were talking about that the other day. That I haven't really seen the super zebra that we were promised back in 2009. That everybody had their hopes on, this golden yellow, bling yellow, solid carpet python. It just seems that I don't know. That project is it's got its own issues, but I just don't know if we'll ever get to that. Do you think we'll ever see that? I mean, it's come close, but not like what you see with jungle
I don't think
carpets.
you'll ever get. I think that super zebras get a bit of a wash of sort of diffused melanin over the whole body, and that tends to give them an olivey green sort of cast, and I think that's what's suppressing that. I don't think you're ever going to get rid of that. I think you can selectively breed what's underneath to be brighter, and you see some. I've got an adult female I'm breeding right now. It's the best one I've ever produced. It's a yellow gold snake. It's not olivey green. It's not brown. It's not gray. It's golden. It's really nice for a super zebra, but there's only so much yellow pigment something can have. If you look at the best jungle carpets you see produced now, and then you look at the best jungle carpets that were produced 25 years ago, you'll notice that they're no better after a quarter century of refinement. They look exactly the same. They don't. You get no better because fundamentally there's only so much. You can only be so yellow. You can't be more yellow. What would be more yellow? It'd be phosphorescent. It would have to glow in the dark to be more yellow, and that's just not a thing. I mean, you can't selectively breed for bioluminescence. Some of these things are just neon, just bright ass canary yellow, and that's the fullest extent of how yellow it's capable of being, and that's why they don't get more yellow.
Yeah,
I do wish the jungle carpet sort of contingent would explore other avenues of selective breeding other than just making more of the same, more yellow. When you hit the wall before most of these guys were even into the game, you'd already hit the wall. And that's just, why do we not have a really amazing neon yellow striped line of jungles that's selectively bred for striping? Which is
Riley's working on it.
is unfathomably easy. I have completely striped Darwin carpets, my Darwin tigers. It took me 3 generations, and they're better than most people's coastals. Like it wasn't difficult. Carpets have no problem being striped mostly. Brettles and inlands not so much, but all the rest of them, yeah, it's not hard. You just keep going, just a few generations, and it nails it down pretty tight. But nobody does. And so I'm a little surprised we don't have that. You see some of the Aussies have some really, it's really a wide yellow stripe. That's an amazing looking phenotype.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish people would get on that more. I'm just trying to break the yellow out of them, make them black. So
yes, right. Right. We were going to talk about that. How's that project coming along?
I've got a male that's substantially blacker than that. And he doesn't breed. This is year 3 of him sitting there doing nothing. He just gets blacker, though. He's so black. I mean,
that one?
No, that's that is the father of them. That's their father.
Oh, okay.
He's the offspring of him. And the male I've got is closer to the father than that female you put up. It is ridiculous. They're probably the best 2 offspring that snake produced. And I just can't get that male to do anything. So far. I thought I saw him spurring her the other day, so maybe. Who knows?
Maybe it's part Darwin. I don't know. No, just kidding.
No. Yeah, whoa.
Too far. I'm sorry.
Good day, sir.
I have a question, Nick, because I'm curious with the melanistic IJs that I do. And did they grow into that? Are they born normal and like slowly gain that melanin over time, or are they come out just black and ready to go?
Is it a mutation? My guess is it's probably a polygenic sort of thing. Melanistic morphs in general are more likely to be melanistic in nature than a single gene sort of a thing. There are tons of examples of single gene melanistic mutations. It's not like they don't exist. There's a bunch of them. But a lot of times a dark animal is just a dark animal and it's not indicative of a single gene mutation. I'm operating under that assumption, but you never know. That seems to be the most likely scenario. They hatch out, the melanistic ones I have hatch out normal and gain dark pigment, but it's quick. Like, they started getting dirty almost immediately. Like every shed, from the first shed on, there was already black tipping on the first shed, and then it just keeps going, and keeps going and keeps filling in. At the present rate, by the time that male I have is 5 or 6 years old, he's going to look just like his father, or 7 years old. He's probably already 5 years old. I just never feed him, but he's going to be just filled in all black pretty much.
The real panther gene.
Thank you. That didn't come out of a spray can.
Panther phenotype. Well,
that whole panther thing.
Eric starts breeding his with melanistic IJs.
I don't want to laugh.
I sort of have the same problem. The males won't breed. It's like they breed, but it's hit or miss. So I don't know. Won't do nothing.
This is welcome to herpetoculture, I guess. This is I've got the number of projects. Like I said, I've got one of my best projects for the whole year. I've got 3 shots at it, and none of them are doing anything. Am I going to produce an xanthic hypo this year? I'd be quite surprised if the male turns it around. It's really making me mad because the xanthic male I'm trying to breed to the 2 females is a proven breeder. It's like, come on.
You know what to do. Now there's no excuse.
He produced the clutch last year with the xanthic female. I have the other one. They're both have produced together, and now I'm just breeding with other snakes and nobody wants to do anything.
Yep.
So, I don't know. We'll see.
I'm curious, how has the sales of the book been? Have you noticed, are they...
I mean, full disclosure, I don't really know what I'm talking about. I know my observations on that sort of subject are just that. I don't know what the expectations of publishers are. I don't know what a fast-selling book, what does that mean? What is the expectation? I really don't know because I don't publish books. It seems like it sold fast. I think at last count a couple months ago, over half of the entire print run was gone.
Wow. Okay.
I think Justin and I alone sold nearly a quarter of 20% of the entire print run before the book even came out. And now I think slightly more than half of the entire print run is sold in 3 months or whatever that's been, which seems like if you print off what you think is 5 years worth of books and you sell half of them in 3 months, that seems like it's going well. But you'd also would expect that to be incredibly front-loaded where there's demand and then most of them go out super fast and then it's a trickle after that, which is what has happened. So I just don't know. I think good. I haven't, Bob hasn't been complaining or anything.
Yeah.
I was just curious if you saw an uptick as opposed to the last book, when you did the first book, to see if there was more people, into carpets, if you will.
It's a little different in that when the first one came out, I was really lax on the taking pre-orders and all of that. So I mean, Justin sold a lot of pre-orders the first time around, and I did very little because I was just very late to getting that up and running and I didn't make much effort. This time I was actually much more proactive about that. So we both, sold quite a few that way. So it seems like it was a lot more, but I was more of an active participant this time than in the previous couple books. So, I don't know. The second edition, so they printed about 1,000 fewer copies than I think the first one. Probably under the assumption that if everybody has the first one, that there'll be less people who want to buy the same book again or what they perceive to be the same book again. But it's completely different.
It's a different book.
It bears almost no resemblance to the original book. Every picture is different. Everything's rewritten, and it's double the size. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's going well. But
good.
You have to ask Bob probably to get a better answer.
When you're talking the carpet python market, if you will, me and Owen have been talking about, we don't really see I mean, you have like the gamma jags and stuff like that, but do you think that it doesn't seem that newer people coming into carpets are into that, the loop-de-loop? I got rid of all my jags. I know a long time ago when we were talking about it, you were sort of in that same ballpark where you're slowly starting to move away from that. Have you seen that happen in the market? Do you think that's right?
Yes. People haven't completely abandoned it, but I've definitely seen people move away from it. I get very few people asking me if I have any jag this or jag that. Once on rare occasion it happens, but not routinely. I've had on occasions where I've had jags for sale. The most common question I get is, "Do you have any that aren't jags?"
I want that, but not a Jaguar.
That Super Caramel, that was from a clutch of Super Caramel Jags. Half of them were Jags and half of them were not. And I made the entire clutch just to keep back. I lost my only female Super Caramel that wasn't a Jag. And then I still have the most amazing Super Caramel Tiger Jag adult female that's many times proven. It's like burnt orange. It's the craziest looking, most awesome looking snake, but she's goofy and all loopy now in her old age. She's laid a bunch of clutches, so she's retired. She's just sitting around not being bred. And then when her sister, who had gotten kind of long in the tooth, also I lost her. I don't want to go back to the process of having to re-prove out what's a Super Caramel and what's not. So out of necessity, I brought her out of retirement, made one clutch to keep back a couple of female Super Caramels that weren't Jags. And I ended up with 22 babies and only one female Super Caramel that wasn't a Jag.
Yeah, that's about right.
Lots of male Super Caramels that weren't Jags and lots of female Super Caramel Jags, but the way it broke down, there's only the one, and that's the one. So I held her back not because she showed some extraordinary sort of potential, just because she was literally the only one. I still have a Super Caramel Jag female from that clutch that's just, well, you guys know, you breed snakes. You get those animals. You probably each have that sort of rogues gallery of, I don't know what I'm going to do with this snake.
Yeah, several. Yeah.
Oh my God, I probably have 10 snakes that I just wish someone would just I could give these things to somebody.
I have a few that I have no idea what to do with them. Yeah.
I end up with I've got an amazing hypo 66% het genetic striped Brettles python that is obviously a het. It's mostly striped. It's awesome. It's a 2020, but when it first hatched, it had what appeared to be like a mild inverted kink in its back, and I wrote kink on the front of the label. After 6 months, the kink was not there anymore. In fact, after the first day, I never saw it again, but I tried to find it about 6 months later. This is 2 years ago. That snake has no discernible kink whatsoever, but I never sell it because I know I saw something. I wouldn't have written that for no reason.
Right.
There had to be something.
Right.
It had a defect that prevented me from selling it, and then now it doesn't, but I don't know what to do with it, so it just sits here.
Yeah.
I've got that Super Caramel Jag female. If you think that Super Caramel looks amazing, that Jag female has not a speck of dark pigment. It looks like some kind of albino. It's insane. But it's just a terrible eater. It's terrible. It eats enough to not die and barely grow at all. It's just, I would just give it to somebody. They could just have it. And I didn't have to take care of it anymore. You get those. I got a zebra from 2020 like that. It was from my best clutch of zebras. Like this thing is, it's just awful.
That's what Eric did. He dropped off a bunch of snakes in boxes off at my house. Like, these are your problem now. Yeah. Okay, all right.
You figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like I've got a 2020 zebra that is like over 2 years old, and it looks like a 2-month-old snake. Like it's,
God, I hate that.
It'll eat enough to not die. Basically, it's healthy. It's fine, but it's like this thing. I don't want this. I can't sell it. What do you do with it?
Right.
That's my Cape York male. I don't know what it is. The thing is just like, I'm just like,
he hates
that's why I was saying to you, I need a Cape York male because I'm done with this one. I had
a clutch of like 8.4. So I got you covered. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Beautiful.
They're almost all boys. Like I'm like, lots of extra males. After the show, like, let me know which one you want. I'll put your name on the best one. So we'll figure it out later.
Nice.
I know. Males that don't want to breed.
Owen's still working with Jags, and Riley. He just bought this super reduced Tiger Jag. So there's people out there, and I'm glad that they're still doing it. But like I just see as a whole that the carpet python world seems to have not. I mean, and it could be the perspective of when we were back in the day, early as carpet pythons, there was what Jag, Tiger, and Granite, right?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning,
there wasn't really like, so everything had to be Jag,
Yeah,
I mean, there's
even
more
that
discouraging than
they had to be Jag too.
Subspecies like they were morphs.
Yep.
IJ Jags and Jungle Jags. So we just don't have enough morphs. I guess. And you see the same thing happen with ball pythons. Like nobody, like the spider morph, which is the exact same mutation,
right?
In ball python land, like not only it's literally like a net negative. Like if you had, a morph combo, and it would be worth $25. If you add one additional gene and it's spider, it becomes worth $20. It actually has negative value. Not only does it not add anything, it actually removes value because people just don't want it.
Right.
So it's not quite like that with carpets, but I have only, what do I have? I have 3 Jags. 3.
Oh, that's it.
Wow. Okay.
I have a caramel tiger Jag head exanthic male, who I wish wasn't a Jag, but my ratio is just a caramel tiger head exanthic. I needed him for that reason. That's actually one I produced and sold, and then sometimes you find yourself needing a snake to fill a hole in the lineup, and you end up buying back a thing you produced years earlier.
That's a kick in the pants.
I bought it back. Well, it's great for me because I don't have to worry about its ancestry. I already have its ancestry.
True.
Right there. I've got everything, all its records still. So I bought that one back, not because it was Jag, but because it was a caramel head exanthic and a tiger. I have an exanthic caramel Jag. So I have a caramel Jag female that is the first one I'd ever produced, and I didn't want to keep it, but the damn thing was just so amazing to look at. I just couldn't make myself sell it. Like I didn't want to keep it because the Jag, it just was so awesome. It was like gray and pink and just amazing. And I have to keep this snake. And it ate on the first try, and I was just hooked. It's like, all right, you can stay. Never missed a meal. Grew like crazy. I never fed it. It would just grow anyway. It was
perfect.
It's like
always what we wanted.
Yeah, and so I've got that one, and I've got the retired super caramel Jag, and that's it. Who's retired?
Yeah.
I we did get this question from Greg Cooper too. He said, let's see, I don't mind that many people are introduced to snake keeping with ball pythons, but does Nick feel that the number of people interested in the lesser known species is growing or declining? What thoughts does he have on how to increase interest in them? I guess carpets would be kind of maybe.
Don't increase interest. Get away from my weird fringe species. Go play on the other side of the sandbox.
It's always like a double-edged sword. Like you can bring up a bunch of positive things that have come about because of the ball python sort of phenomenon, and you can also bring up a bunch of pretty negative things that it's caused. It's a mixed bag. Has it brought more people into the hobby? Absolutely. The hobby has grown exponentially big, and that's been the single biggest driver of that. But it's also sort of cheapened the hobby in a way, and that has created a mindset in the hobby that the only thing that matters is morphs. It's the only thing that matters. Nothing. Why would you even have a snake that doesn't have morphs? Why would it even? What's the point of being alive if you're not a morph? Why would you even be alive? What's the point?
Why feed it?
The ridiculous. Like, I have an inland carpet for sale. It's like, oh, I thought about getting into inlands, but there really aren't any morphs. So what are you supposed to do with them? It's like, what do you mean?
Inlands are awesome.
A morph is not an improvement. It's just a novelty, basically. It's like a different, it's a novelty paint job difference, really, for the most part. And it's not an improvement. It's just different. It's not better than. It's just different than. And it's created this perception that is the only thing that matters in the hobby. And it's probably the thing that matters the least in the hobby. So now we have this paradox where people are obsessed with something that doesn't really matter much. And they kind of lose sight of the things that I think do matter. So that's not a positive development. But yeah, a lot more people have come into the hobby as a result of it.
We talk about that a lot, that inlands don't get no love. Like Brett'll seem to get some love, but
I do my best. I keep trying to get him some love. I keep promoting him.
Yeah, you're the guy, man. You're the guy when it comes to Brett'ls. I mean, I was looking at your Facebook page, like to just pull up those pictures that I got, and I'm just like looking at the lines of just Brett'ls. Like, you click on photos on Facebook, it's just glowing red Brett'ls after one, after the other, after the other. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, you should be proud of that one.
They're like a python that's designed to be somebody's pet. They're basically indestructible.
Yeah.
Super temperature tolerant, as docile as any ball python, only they get better looking with age. Instead of turning brown, they turn red, and they get mellower with age, and they're interesting, and they actually move and do stuff. They're awesome. They're the perfect.
And you got to drop a rock on it to kill it.
Yeah, no, I love them. It's like I recommend. I get a lot of people that want their first carpet python, and they come from whatever other area of the hobby, and I always try to steer them towards one of those. It's like, look, you have a snake, you're never going to worry about it biting you. You're just going to reach in there and grab it and interact with it, and it's going to display. It's not going to be shy. It's going to get better looking with age, and you could probably leave it in the refrigerator overnight. It'd probably be fine. Like, I Raytech temp gunned my Brett'ls pythons are in brumation the other day. It was 46 degrees. 46. Yeah, fine. They're looking like they want to eat something. They're moving around like 46 degrees.
Yep.
Yeah. Lucas said in 20 years he's going to have the whole red inland thing going. I said, I don't know if I'll be around in 20 years.
Hurry up, Lucas.
Lucas said he's going to selective breed the red in inlands. And I said, in 20 years he's going to have it. I said, I don't know if I'll be alive in 20 years, man.
And it's possible.
I hope so.
Any of those sort of carpets are so phenotypically plastic that you can selectively breed just about anything you could think of. You could do given enough time. You just have to be willing to do things like make a clutch of babies and raise all of them for 3 years to figure out which ones gain the most that red pigment. If you're willing to do that, you'll make good progress. People, they think they start a selective breeding project, and they don't. And that they think what they do is they breed two snakes together, and they have a desired sort of look that they're shooting for, and then they hold back one or two snakes from that clutch. It's like, no, you hold back a lot of snakes, and then you thin it down later as they color up, and you kind of see where things go. Carpets, their ontogenic color change is two things happen. As they mature, they gain additional rounds of black pigment distribution and also yellow pigment. That yellow pigment is what makes your jungle carpet turn from gray to yellow, and also what makes the black tipping. That's the end of the color change. In a Brett'ls python, those yellow pigments manifest themselves as the red pigment you see as they get older. And so if you're trying to selectively breed for, red, yellow, brown, any of those tones in a carpet python, you need to wait till they've had their ontogenic color change to see how much they gain. You can't figure it out just by looking. Pattern characteristics you can totally pick right out of the egg, but color, you got to be patient. And if you want reasonably fast results, I'll hold back 8 or 10 for a year, and then cut it down to like 6, and then then I think I'm going to tell myself I'll cut it down to the best pair at a year later, and then I never do, and then I have a million adults because I start thinking like logically, which is not what I need to do. It's like, well, I put this much time into it. Like, I have a female granite, 66% het xanthic that is obviously het xanthic. And it's like a 2.5-year-old snake. It's a subadult. It's eating medium rats. I'm like, yeah, I don't need this. Like, why did I hate to pull this back? What am I doing? It's the most inefficient way to do anything. Like selling things you've raised 3/4 of the way to adulthood.
Bring it right up to that line and then get rid of it. Yeah.
I realized, like, what am I doing? Like, I literally have in my xanthic granite project, I literally have an xanthic granite male that is a really good breeder. I have a granite that's a pos het xanthic that looks like an xanthic granite. He's that visual. And he breeds. I've got a het granite. I've got 3 visual granites. I've got an xanthic granite and a double het xanthic granite and an xanthic. And it's too many. Why do I need that many snakes in one project?
Right.
Well, I think I'm going to get a clutch out of an xanthic pop one I got from you, Eric.
Oh, nice. Shit.
Bred to an xanthic granite, so a whole clutch of xanthics, 100% het granite.
Nice.
Great ovulate. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully they're good eggs, but I like the xanthic pop ones quite a bit.
Yeah, I do too. Much better than I had bad luck with the coastals. I just
this close to giving up on the xanthic coastals.
Really?
Come to the dark side.
They're gone. They're gone. My female has this. I've been trying to get this one female to breed for like 5 years, and she's my het, and I'm like, will you please? And I've all manner of xanthics over the years, and this is the last year, and then I'm done. I'm gonna just. I have a
whole clutch of xanthic granites, except I think I gave one to Jason. And other than that, I think I might have sold maybe one other one. And I don't know.
Double visual
dude. You have those? Give them to me. I will.
No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I said that wrong. Het.
Okay.
Double het. Yeah.
I would take some double hets. I could play with IJs. Please let me back.
Double hets this year. I made a few more double visuals. I did make like 1.5 xanthic 100% het granites. I made no granites that were het xanthic, but I had like 5 female xanthics that are 100% het granite.
Cool.
So I kept a couple of them. But of course I did.
Speaking of brothers,
you got other ones I've got that I've been raising up for no reason.
That is an amazing carpet morph, man. That has to be one of the top ones. Besides I was really impressed with the stripe hypo stuff, and that stuff is amazing. The hypo tigers, but the xanthic granite, man, they are nice.
I think my 2 favorite carpet morphs, if you consider Brettles, are probably the full blood hypo stonewashed and the xanthic granites. I think both of those they couldn't be more different in terms of color, but I think those are just 2 about the most extreme things.
Yeah.
I wish the xanthic granites were a little easier to make. I'll get there, though. I'm getting there. There. But they said, that double recessive stuff takes a minute to make any numbers of.
So we did get this question. Can you go over the meaning of 50% versus 100% hypo stonewash?
Yes.
Okay.
I saw that Lori asked that. Basically, That's just that's my way of denoting what you're getting, basically. And I think it's the most honest way to represent that. Hypo and Brettles pythons is complicated. It's like if I gave everybody a pen and paper and said, here, write the most convoluted and confusing thing you could possibly imagine, that's pretty much what it would be. It's just... to explain it to people, it's difficult. I wish it was anything in the world but what it is, but it is, in fact, what it is. And that it is basically simultaneously a single gene mutation and a polygenic thing, in the sense that it is not strictly a single gene mutation, but there is a single gene at its core. So imagine if you have like a full-blood hypo, the full deal, not undiluted from hypo to hypo back ad infinitum since the dawn of time. And you assume that that it's a polygenic thing and there's more than one gene that contribute to it. After 15 years of doing things like holding back whole clutches for 7 years of their adults and seeing how they go at various dilutions and figuring this out, what it seems to be is that it's a small number of genes, probably about 4-ish. Could be 3, could be 5, probably can't be much less or much more than 3 or 5. It's in that, so 4, for the sake of explanation, the math works out easier, just easier to talk if we assume it's 4 genes. But if you have a polygenic trait that there are 4 genes that are responsible for contributing to that phenotype, it's tempting to assume that all of them are doing 25% each, but that's never how it works. In this case, imagine, if you will, a scenario where you have one gene that's the core hypo gene that is doing about 50% of the work, and the other 3 genes cumulatively are doing the other 50%. So it's very weighted towards one gene. There is a core hypo gene, and then the other stuff sort of is globbed on at the end, and that the combination of all those things creates that phenotype. Now, the second level of complexity to that is that there's 2 different types of black pigment in all these snakes. There is the base layer of pigment that is black pigment that's present when the snakes hatch, and that is governed by, the genes that it's governed by. And then you have a second round of pigment that comes in with age when they go through the ontogenic color change. You have that second round of black pigment distribution. That appears to be governed by different genes than the base layer. So what you have is a situation where the primary core gene for the hypobretals knocks out that base layer of the gene that controls that base layer of black pigment that's present when they hatch. And they're all dominant or incomplete dominant. It's very murky whether it's dominant or incomplete dominant. But suffice to say that if you have one copy of that base gene, or if you have 2, you hatch out and are visually hypomelanistic. You can tell the ones that have, so you can tell, right, if you have a clutch that's mixed, you can tell ones that at least got that present, that base gene. You can see that they look different than the ones that didn't. But that doesn't tell you if they got the genes that come in later. The other genes, we'll say 3 genes, combine to suppress the later round of black pigment distribution that happens when they go through a color change. Anybody that's kept Bredl's pythons, they gain dark pigment on the tail, on the ass end. When they start to get about 3-4 feet long, they'll start getting thicker black bands on the tail.
Yep.
The other genes in the hypo suppress that later round of black pigment distribution. And if you have all of those genes, you have an animal that starts out with very little black pigment and finishes with very little pigment. So where the 50%, 75%, this sort of stuff comes into play is how much you have diluted that. If you assume that the original founding hypos were homozygous, I hate the term, I'm starting to move away from the term super because it's frankly not very scientific. But they're the...
Really? Can't imagine why.
Yeah, it's a hobby term, and I think it goes back to Kevin McCurley, and so that alone is the reason to quit saying it. But so...
we already had words for these things. Why did you need to make new ones?
Because I don't... I mean, it was obviously to sort of dumb it down, but I don't think you do people any favor by dumbing things down, do you? I think...
No.
Homozygosity versus heterozygosity is not that complicated. I think people can handle the correct...
They teach you in middle school biology. We can figure it out.
We're not toddlers. I think people can handle the right term. So if you're operating the assumption that the original hypos were homozygous for all 4 of these genes,
okay,
i.e. the quote-unquote super of all of genes, when you breed a full-blood hypo that is homozygous for all of these genes to a non-hypo, you basically made a quadruple heterozygote. It's heterozygous for all of those genes. But since all of those genes are incomplete dominant, they look visually really hypo. Mm-hmm. When I did this the first time, I bred the original hypo male to genetic striped female from a totally unrelated bloodline. And I was astounded that the babies looked, there were 16 babies, and I raised all of them for 7 years. And I never even bred half of them. I sent Paul half of that clutch as adults, just so I didn't have to feed them or house them anymore.
Did all the work.
Well, I wanted to know, and I'm glad I did, because the obvious, most people, what they would have done is like, oh, the 50% watered down hypos looked exactly the same and were utterly and completely indistinguishable from the full blood hypos. They looked exactly the same. For almost a year, they looked the same. Most people would just start selling them and say, oh, it's obviously dominant or incomplete dominant or dominant, because they look just like the... But what happened is, since they only had one of each of those genes and weren't homozygous for any of them, when they went through their color change, they gained substantially more black. It varied quite a bit, but a lot of them gained a lot more dark pigment than the average on that back end of their color change than a full-blood hypo typically would have. There's always ranges of variation and overlap, but those animals as adults at 50%, the best one looks, to this day, I still have him, I don't breed him anymore, but he looks like a full-blood hypo, and the worst one looked like a glorified normal. Most of them were in the middle of that. Definitely better, lighter and brighter with less black pigment than a normal would have, but not what a full-blood hypo would typically have. Mm-hmm. But you had to raise them for a couple, 3 years before you could really see that color change plant and that additional black pigment come through. So when I say a 50% hypo, this really is complicated because there's another layer beyond this that makes it even more confusing. But I'm talking about the percentage of hypo blood there is, and you can use that as a proxy for some sort of expectation as to what to expect visually. Okay. If there's 8 potential alleles at 4 different locus, you could have 8 alleles possibly. You could be homozygous for all 4. A first generation 50% hypo can only have 4. Mathematically, can only have 4. You can't have any more than that. Mm. Now, when you breed a 50% to a 50%, a hypo het stripe to a hypo het stripe to make hypo stripes, theoretically, you're still at 50% hypo blood because you bred 50% to 50% divided by 2. You're still at 50%. However, at that point, 2 things happen. You can return to a state of homozygosity at any one of those 4 places, and you can also lose the hypo allele at any of those 4 places in equal measure. So what you find is the first generation hypos that are outcrossed are very consistent. They all look really awesome, and then they get older and gain more dark pigment. The 50% to 50%, some of them statistically would actually be a full hypo again, and some would be a completely normal again. The odds of that are extremely low, though. It's like 64 to 1 odds you'd have one that was homozygous for all 8 or all 4 genes, or whiffed on all 4 genes entirely, but it's possible. So what you see is you'll have they'll diverge into 2 camps. You basically end up with about 2/3 of the snakes are obviously hypomelanistic to some degree or other, and about 1/3 are not. But even that is only a measure of did they inherit any copies of that base gene that knocks out that base layer of pigment. And when you breed 50%, a heterozygous, 2 heterozygotes for an incomplete dominant gene that does that, you'd exactly expect that 2/3 of them would get, 50% of them would get 1 copy, 1 out of 4 would get 2 copies, and 1 out of 4 would get no copies. And that's pretty much what you see. Mm-hmm. You can't really tell apart which one got 2 copies versus the ones that got 1 at that age, but you can definitely tell the one that didn't. And that's how you know that that's what's at. And the ones that don't hatch out, particularly hypomelanistic, usually the statistical probability that you whiffed on all the genes that come in later is extremely remote. They probably got a little something on the back end. So you end up with these animals that, are not what you'd call a hypo, but they will end up curiously good looking later. They'll end up a little bit nicer than you would otherwise expect. I've made a bunch of genetic stripes that are like that are like, well, they're not hypo stripes because they whiffed on that base gene, but they clearly got a little something on the back end. So they end up a little bit redder than your typical stripe would end up, but not something you could in good conscience call a hypo.
Gotcha.
So calling it by percentage, that's the percentage of the hypo blood that's in there. And what I want is for people to have a realistic expectation of what to expect. There are people out there, and I knew it was going to happen when it got confusing, that are like, they just like, oh, it's a hypobrettles. It's a hypobrettles. It's like, is it? It's like if you've got, hypo, 50% hypo blood, and then you breed that hypo to something that isn't a hypo, at that point, you're at only 25%. You might at most have, 1/2 a copy of something? I mean, maybe. Mm-hmm. That animal's not going to have the same potential as a higher percentage animal would, because the probability of inheriting more of those alleles and giving you a more bold phenotype goes down every time you do that. And so That's what that is. It's the best way I could come up with, but everything we come up with is always somewhat imperfect, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. The other question we had is, I think I sent this to you. What are your thoughts on providing UV for carpet pythons?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's a difference between people breeding them and keeping them as pets or whatever. Diamond pythons have UV4, but I don't know if you had any thoughts on.
I don't do it, and I have absolutely no intention of starting to do it. I don't think there's any real objective evidence that would suggest that there's any benefit from it. However, I will also say that there's no way it's going to make things worse. And the technology, the equipment is pretty cheap. So if you're not doing any harm, if there, just because there's no, definitive evidence that shows there's any benefit in doing so, it doesn't mean there isn't a benefit. It just means that no one studied enough to find that benefit. It's possible that there is some tangible benefit of doing it that no one's really quantified. And you're certainly not doing any harm. So if you're not doing any harm, if you got some expensive snakes like diamonds, like, is it going to really hurt you to put a $50 light bulb on them? Not really.
No.
There is one benefit that is tangible, though, and that is that snakes look different under full spectrum lighting. They look more natural. They do. And it's like, so, your own, even if it's just your own personal viewing pleasure as you look in this beautiful cage of this beautiful snake, and it looks more natural, and maybe it enhances how it looks to you visually because of the spectrum of light you're putting on it, that's probably worth a $60 light bulb. So you're certainly not hurting them. But until I see some real, something through peer review that shows there's some actual physiological benefit, then, at that point, I guess I'm buying a lot of light bulbs. But
there's been some papers.
Predators, so, not diamonds.
Let me throw this back at you, because this was there was a YouTube video that I was watching on, and they were talking about some papers that were studied UV in snakes, right? Not necessarily carpet pythons, but they talked about the nocturnal. Like, people think that you don't have to, and this doesn't necessarily have to do with UV, but more of a light cycle, right? Is that there's certain we have certain hormones that kick in when the sun comes up to wake us up and get us going, and then to put us to sleep when the sun goes down, right? And in nocturnal animals, it's just the opposite. So if you're doing that light cycle, then they made it seem like they were living in daylight all the time if you're not giving them light, or if you're giving them a light cycle.
I think everything should have a light cycle. I think that's probably absolutely true. Just like it's like you may have worked a graveyard shift in your life, or you certainly have known people that have. It's like they're constantly fighting against their own biology. It's like your brain is wired to sleep when it's dark and be awake when it's light. It's like, you ever drive all night, from a long road trip, and you drive all through the night without sleeping, and you should be totally tired, and the sun comes up and you suddenly aren't as tired anymore, even though you've been up for 24 hours driving back from California? This happens to me when the sun comes up. All of a sudden I feel like I've rejuvenated, even though I haven't rested because of that. That's a thing. It would stand to reason that they would have something similar. They're not supposed to be active all the time. And if it's reversed, then it's reversed. But I think, I have cage lights, and every cage has lights in it. I have tubs that have lights in them. Not every tub, but I have room lights, and the room lights are on, and the room lights are on a timer. So I program in the photo period for all of my adult snakes and my baby room. The lights are on in the room, whether I turn the light on when I go in. It's all automatic.
Mm-hmm.
I can turn it off manually if I need to, because a lot of times you do better feeding things in the dark when they're first, fussy little babies. But everything needs a photo period.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, when I was first coming into it, it seemed like with the people that I was talking to, I think this was even before I started talking to you, they said photo periods for carpets was just bullshit, and you don't need to do it, and blah, 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 blah. But, the more, I think snakes are that group of reptiles that have sort of not, nobody has really studied in depth the care. Like we keep them, and they live. Maybe there's more to it than what meets the eye.
Yeah, it's just because what you're doing works doesn't mean you can't do something that would work better.
Yeah.
Just because if you're only, if things eat, grow, and breed and reproduce successfully, if that's your benchmark for success, which is not irrational to think that. some of these sort of ancillary things may not be completely necessary, but it doesn't mean you should discount them entirely. There's not. I have seen in my own collection behaviors from snakes that, there is a trend, unfortunately, in the hobby now where people anthropomorphize a bit too much about this stuff, and they sort of imbue these animals with a bit more cognitive ability than they pretty clearly have in a lot of cases. Your snake doesn't really get bored. That's not a thing. They don't have bored. That's not a thing the brain processes. Your snake has not bored. It's also not happy to see you because they don't really do happy or sad either, for that matter. It's like, but they are capable of a little bit more than we think, probably.
Right.
So I think as a keeper that it is our responsibility to meet the needs of the animals we choose to keep. They didn't choose to live in a box at your house. You chose to have them live in a box at your house.
Yeah.
Right.
Some responsibility to give them a decent quality of life. People will argue endlessly about what that means, but I think that's the basic, gist of it. It's like to give these animals a decent quality of life. Like I said, I give everything a photo period, always have.
Mm-hmm.
I've got cages. Like, why would I want a bunch of dark cages? Like, it's it's so easy to get to
see them coming from the dark. No,
I have little hockey puck LED lights. They're like a quarter of an inch thick. They're these little, and they just stick to the ceiling, and they're so easy to wire up. Like, why would I want to see the snake? It's easier to clean the cage, even if I didn't want to see this. It's just better. Why wouldn't you put lights in the cage? Whether or not you have UV lights or something, you can argue whether or not
you could debate
that's necessary, but it's at least provide a photo period.
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I forgot this. Lucas had a question. He just said to the Brettles thing, with this complex structure, how did we get here? Is the Brettles hypo just the product of selective breeding? I don't think he was paying attention.
I don't think he was listening. Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed. Lucas should know better. I talk to him all the time. I've literally sent this man 50% hypo blood animals on breeding loan that he's bred twice.
He doesn't even know what he has.
2 years. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm telling you.
Lucas.
Yeah. No, it's. I doubt that the core.
His question is being.
That's unfortunate for him.
It's not It can't be a situation of just purely of selective breeding. You could argue, or not necessarily argue, but you could debate whether or not those other alleles, in particular the 3 that come in on the back end, that contribute to a hypo, were those separate individual mutations that have aggregated to this point on here. Or were those just alleles that were in the Brettles python gene pool more generally in captivity, and they just accumulated via selective breeding? I don't think you didn't have a series of mutations occurring in the hobby or whatever that yielded this, but it's they could have been, natural alleles floating around that when you get them all lined up in the right animal, you end up with this. At least some. The base layer gene one, I doubt very much, but that would be the case. But hard to say.
Okay. Owen, anything else that you want to hit on before we jump over to the Patreon?
I'm good. I mean, I'm just eating it all and getting it all in the head. Yeah, just sitting here and I'm like,
the inner carpet
coastals are out of here. Let's get me some exanic granites in here, and I'll fail at breeding IJs further. So.
You can't breed IJs.
I have
He can't do it.
This has been a 12-year thing. You've been disappointed in me for this.
I assumed you'd just done it at that time.
No, it's just constant failure.
But they're the easiest one.
I only had one pair, so I know I set myself up for failure.
You only need one pair. They're literally probably the only carpet that is so easy to breed. You can breed them on accident. You can accidentally breed them.
Yeah, Chris bred white-lip pythons.
I just haven't gotten the IJs, and then I'll try again.
I cycle everything way later than everybody else. I'm just now starting to see females that are starting to lay on their side and build towards ovulation. And there's 6 carpets that are clearly going to go. There'll be more, but the first 6, 5 of them are IJs. It's always that way. It's yeah, of course you are.
I couldn't let Eric. I mean, that's his thing. I can't step on his toes. Now, he doesn't breed. I'll take it.
IJs for your benefit, just not confuse you. So,
Yeah, come on, man. You can't be a white-lipped python breeder and not.
I so can.
It just defies all.
I so can. Because here I am.
White lips, like literally, the southern white lips are sympatric with them. Like they're literally in the same place. Like what are you doing? One is, a mate selective pain in the ass to breed species, and one's the easiest thing in the world. Then you're just like.
And I go
to the white lips, but not the
left or right, and I went right. Yeah. So it's.
I've not bled southern white lips myself yet, so you got that one on me for sure.
Mine are northerns, so they're the.
I thought you bred southerns too.
No, well, working on it, but northerns right now. Yeah.
I hate white lip pythons.
Me too, Nick.
I hate them so
Beautiful
much.
Nasty ass. Why? I laugh my ass off every time I see people oohing and eyeing, and like that became the must-have it snake. It's like
that is so annoying.
You gotta be so disappointed when they get one. They spend all this money, and it's just gonna piss on them and bite them and just be nasty. And oh my god,
worse than that, people are eating up Timor pythons, and I'm like, do you really want that thing? Because like you touch that thing, and it just sprays
pees on you.
It's everywhere. Like why would you do this? Stuff. Yeah.
Didn't I send you my original black white lips?
You did.
I got the last ones I got angry at and frustrated with, and I sent them to you.
many moons ago, yes.
And the male was captive bred from Matt Turner, and it was horrible.
Yeah,
captive bred, it was just nasty. Nasty. I've got a pair again that Ryan produced in different years, and they're like sub-adults, and they're horrible too. Like I've got a group of gold white lips that are captive bred that Ryan literally lives like not a mile, like an hour drive. So I have captive bred gold ones from Ryan, and they're freaking terrible snakes.
No, all mine are horrible. All those babies are evil. Yeah.
The only way I can even clean them, I never feed them anything but tiny feed, because every week when I got to clean them, I have to do the clean and feed, where you like give them a little tiny rat, and while they're just killing that rat, you change the water, because it's like. Because God help you if you try to just get in there without that distraction. Like,
you're bleeding. Yeah.
It's like, why every time I got to interact, I'm like, why do I have you? Why are you here? Why do I do this to myself? It's like the damn Tanabar pythons or something I insist on keeping. It's like,
because you're going to just check it off the list, and when you finally get the eggs, you're going to be like, yes, done, get out.
I've tried Tanabar pythons multiple times.
No, not them, the white lips. So just check it and then get rid of them.
I probably will. I don't know. It's like I've got to do it just because I can't let Ryan totally show me up on that. I have known Ryan for almost 30 years. Like I've known that guy since I was a newbie dipshit in the hobby. And he was the guy that worked at one of the local pet shops that I sold me crickets. Like, literally, I've known him since we were both a couple of just dingling hobbyists with a couple of snakes, didn't know what we were doing or talking about. And I've just grown up in the hobby with Ryan. So we have a friendly rivalry, but he's one of my closest friends. But so I'm like, he's like, the list of things I've bred that he hasn't bred has gotten small, but the list of things he's bred he's gaining ground on me.
Yeah, he crushed it last year. Holy shit!
I gotta talk to him when it gets warm. I want to send that ring python out to him, and we got to swap white lips, him and I. So
one thing it's like I've been doing this a long time. I've bred a ton of stuff, but you can always learn from somebody else. There's always something. The older I get, and when I was younger, I thought I knew everything, and now I just like the more I actually know a lot of stuff, the more I realize how much stuff I don't know. It's like the more you know, the more you realize the insurmountable amount of stuff you'll never know. And so,
what's that called? There's a curve on that. I
convince myself I know everything about breeding pythons, but I don't. So, like, I'm trying to breed Burmese pythons and had a hell of a time the last couple of years. So I've taken Ryan. I'm doing the Ryan Young method. I'm gonna learn a new trick from Ryan. Breed some bird. But I'll be damned if it's not working. Like, son of a bitch, I did what he said, and they're locking up. I'm like, really? Like, all right. Like I can't be that stubborn and just stuck in my ways because what I do usually works for most things. It's like, if it's not working, I've got a few snakes that, I'm like 10 years of trying to breed that haven't bred yet. And now they're getting old and they're absolutely irreplaceable. I would never be able to get more. They just don't exist. So I need to get them to produce. So I'm trying the Ryan technique with food cycling to induce ovulation with some of these guys, and so far we'll see. Like
Cool.
Like their females quit feeding. I'm like, really? Like I never feed during the breeding season, so I don't know if they would eat at all. I'm like, I just don't ever offer them food, like ever.
Right.
I'm like, so refusing food, like I refuse to feed them, so I
don't give them that option.
I kept feeding this year. I kept eating, and then like the other day, all of them just like, nope, we're not eating. I'm like, really? So I don't know. Maybe I'll adopt a new technique for some of these things.
Cool.
Nice. The last thing before we go, podcast. A couple of people are asking about that, so it's coming out soon.
It is. Just bear with me. Just to err on the side of too much information, I guess, since I can never shut up about anything. Years ago, I did a podcast, and that was great. I had a lot of good episodes, in my opinion. It was fun to do, but I always struggled at the time in finding guests because my goal is always to sort of have different sorts of guests and talk about things that other people don't talk about on podcasts, to sort of kind of carve out a different little niche in the podcast universe. Definitely airing more on technical scientific matters and aspects of herpetoculture and that sort of stuff. But unfortunately, those sorts of guests are much more difficult to get. Academics generally don't care about being on some reptile ding-a-lings podcast. A lot of times they don't. Some will. But it's hard to get, like if you do a podcast where you're talking to snake breeders and keepers, like those people are usually really willing to come on and talk. So you have a ready supply of guests. If you want to talk to the PhD crowd, it's a much smaller group of people, and a lot of them are just not interested in doing that. So I struggle getting guests on a regular basis. So what I'm doing now is recording multiple episodes in advance before the first one goes out. So I have a kind of a cache of episodes to buy myself a little time when it inevitably takes, longer. Well, I might in the next 2 weeks, I probably should have enough episodes to go live, and I'll have 8 or 9 of them already done.
Okay.
I'm trying to get one with the guy's actually a friend of mine. He's just finished his PhD, and it's like he's got the crunch time to finish that. But I want to talk to him about his results. But it's very technical. It's all about the molecular evolution of sex chromosomes and dwarf monitors, that's some nerdy stuff right there. That's awesome. But things had to get published. So you're waiting for that. You're always waiting for something when you're talking to academics a lot of times. So I have 3 more academic guests. I should be able to knock them out in the next couple of weeks, and then hopefully get something out closer to the end of the month, and then be able to put things out on a regular basis, hopefully. And it will make 6 or 7 people super happy.
This is apparently some sort of blackmail that's going on. Is that Lucas wants roughies, or he's deleting the files? So
he says,
I only have female roughies, Lucas.
Oh, I need female roughies, so send them there. I'll tell you.
Females this year. You need a female roughie?
No, not yet. I don't know. These 3 are annoying me. Maybe. I can always need more roughies.
You haven't bred them yet. Did you breed them yet?
No. Well, I got the clutch, but they all died on me. So this year, hopefully, I've been seeing locks. So
yeah, they're not that hard to breed. The babies are kind of a pain to get feeding. I've always struggled. The babies are really they're substantially more difficult than a carpet. Usually what wins the day is patience, and you just gotta wait them out, and eventually they eat. But it's like months and months go by. I still got one that's never fed from last year. It's never eaten. I'm not even surprised it's never eaten. Not even surprised at all. Like it's so they can be challenging.
That'll be this year's pain in my ass. So yeah,
it's cool when you breed it. It's like, holy crap, that's like one of the rarest pythons in the world, and like you just hatched them. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And they're such a cool species too. Eric, you must have Carinata.
Yeah, I got one from you, and I need a female. I have a male. Yeah. At the snake.
The box is building. We're building a box here. Yeah.
Oh no, the Nick box.
I only hatched like 6 from a female I held back. She's not that big, and I got like 6 babies, and they're all girls.
Oh, nice.
Well, there was a 7th one that hatched, but it was a male, and it had you ever had something that had its hemipenes out?
No.
Like hemipenes completely averted, just dragging his hemipenes around until they fell off. you couldn't put them back in. It was like some sort of weird birth defect. I've seen it before in boas and other things. Not common, but occasionally you'll see them and they're just junk is out. And of course that doesn't go well.
No.
And he never ate and crashed very soon. Something was not right. And obviously
he was not 100%. Yeah.
No, and he didn't last terribly long. The other 6 were solid, and they're all girls though. So, which is better than all boys.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll end here. We'll chop over to the Patreon thing's not going to be live. We'll post it up tomorrow or tonight after we're done. But we're going to talk about something over there, and for about 10, 15 minutes or so, and then Nick has to roll. So
10, 15 minutes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, go ahead, throw your info out there. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows where it is, but in case we got people listening to it that don't know, where can they find you, Nick?
I'm the easiest guy in the world to find. Just inlandreptile.com. I'm on Facebook. I think theoretically I'm on Instagram, but I never check that because I'm old and I don't even know.
You're old. You ain't on Instagram.
No.
There's so many of these things now. Like my kids are like, "Oh, what are you doing?" It's like, "Oh, I'm on Snapchat." I'm like, "What's a Snapchat?" I don't know. Like what? I don't even. I'm like, I'm too old. It must be like. I think I'm just probably a little bit too old for even Instagram because I don't even understand why Instagram even exists. Like, why do we need this? It's like a place where you can post pictures and say stuff. Like, aren't there a bunch of places like that? Like, I don't.
Yeah, but this is a different one. What?
Why? I don't understand. I don't want to be on Twitter. I don't want to be on any of these things. I just. I'm like
Twitter's us.
I'm on Facebook with the rest of the old people.
Gen Xers and above. We're all over there. Yeah, no worries.
You're 50 yet, Eric?
No, I'm 48. I'll be 49 in.
Here's the young buck still.
March.
48 sounds amazing.
Yeah,
I would love it. I have fond memories of being 48 a couple of years ago. I just turned 50. It sucks.
I got 3 more years till I hit 40.
You can kind of like almost delude yourself into thinking you're not an old man when you're in your late 40s, but when you hit 50, there is no denying it. You are fucking old. So old.
I'm at 50 in my mind now. Because I
happened to me at the gym the other day. I was at the gym the other day and like this, kind of cute young girls there. And I try to not pay any attention to that at all. I'm there to do something and I'm not definitely like a creepy old dude. And so I'm like actively avoiding making eye contact, and this girl's working out next to me. And then she like starts talking to me and like trying to get my attention. And I'm like, well, that's really weird. So I, take my headphones down and everything. And like, what does this girl want? And then she literally turns out she thought I was her friend's dad. I'm like, I thought you were my friend's dad. That makes sense, right? That makes sense. Like,
the messed up thing is in your mind, you still think you're 20, right? I still think of myself as
30
young,
or something,
but I'm
maybe I don't know. But it's like, no, I thought you were my friend's elderly father, or whatever. It's just like this total. For like a second, it was like this crushing ego deflation, and then I just cracked up. I just thought that was the funniest thing. Like, oh man,
that's great.
All right, old guy
we'll
now.
end there and we'll jump over into the other.
Yeah.
thing.
On that note, let's jump over
on that self-deprecating note, we'll jump over to the Patreon.